This complex is intimately related to a man called Zheng Wangning, who was the main figure behind the house and the construction of the house, and who was a very prominent Chinese thinker and reformer. This is not exactly a house, even though we always call it the house and the house of the Mandarin, but it works as a palace because he was somehow empowered by the Chinese authorities to represent a lot of interests of the local community and the Chinese in Macau. All of this is not so apparent when you walk in the street, because the house is almost invisible from the street. And I think that's very expressive of the way the Chinese represent themselves, not showing the power, but somehow, playing with it. So the house has a very interesting structure. It's very ritualistic. I would say that at the center of the house lies the Ronglu Hall, which is a very small structure that separates the public from the private part of the house. And then in the Ronglu Hall there is another axis at 90 degrees, which leads to the main garden. The main garden, nobody knows exactly how it was. It was very destroyed. The focus of the garden is a small pavilion, the Wangzhang Pavilion, which is like a Chinese garden pavilion, place for meditating, where they would have tea and have a political discussion or any kind of rhetorical exercises. All the main pavilions, especially the Juqing Pavilion, which is the main household, is facing west, which is not the traditional orientation of the Chinese pavilions. All these pavilions, which have this terrace in front, were overlooking the river, the port, which was a very dynamic thing at the time in the 19th century, and the island and the hills across. So it had this very special connection to the setting. The most peculiar piece of the whole structure for me is this patio where we are at, which lies really at the center next to the Ronglu Hall, and which has all these different things that come together. Not only Chinese and Western, but a lot of Southeast Asian influence. The pavilion next to this patio, you will see that it has a very typical Southern Chinese or Guangdong style structure with a triple bay and a three set of rooms in the longitudinal way. And both of these and the next pavilion have a central courtyard, an open courtyard, which brings in a very beautiful and special kind of light. When you look at this building, all of this is total cultural crossing. And it's very experimental and it's very successful. This is the proof that China had this doorway, and this also represents why Macau was so important for China.